So now we can start, and I would say that almost all of us know who Chanakya is. But even then, I think it would be worthwhile to look at what Chanakya was exactly. Hmm. And there we have uh, a very interesting situation that Chanakya basically was a teacher who taught Chandragupta Maurya to become a good and a very successful ruler. And all the work that he did for training him has been put up together in Arthashastra, starting from how to train the princess of the king and how also to go about uh, ruling a big state. So let us look at what this management guru has done. In management today, most people will tell you that management consists of planning, coordination, and such other three, four things together. But that doesn't tell you, supposing I am very, very good at all these four different things, have I really achieved anything out of it? I might be excellent in, let us say, coordination, interpersonal relationship, but that doesn't mean that something has been really done by way of good management. So this management definition is something which Chanakya has done. When you say management is a science, then science should have laws. Has anybody ever developed laws on management? Yes. That is again the answer is Chanakya. Now, there is one quality without which a manager is a disaster in the sense, if such a manager comes up, the trouble will be with the organization and with the people there. So, similarly, one can say that principles of man management should be such that they will be eternal in the sense, as long as the human behavior remains the same, which remains the same for almost 4 or 5,000 years, it should remain valid. And the answer is yes to all these vital questions given by Vishnugupta, whose father was Chanak, therefore he was called Chanakya, and who wrote Arthashastra by the name as Kautilya because he came from the Kautal Gotra. Now, Niti Sutras of Chanakya were composed about 2350 years ago, and even then they are valid today. Now, he tutored Chandragupta Maurya to become a big, an emperor and run the whole show very well. That particular dynasty of Mauryas lasted for 136 years, which tells you how the training program for Chandragupta would have been. That is why I always call him the first management guru of the world, total management. Everything that you want to know about management, he has done. Okay, let's go to his definition of management. Many of you may or may not have done Sanskrit or may not be very familiar with it, but you'll find that most of the words here, though Sanskrit, are something which we are familiar with. For example, alabdha, labdha, rakshita. Vrutya is perhaps something not known, but vrutya means employees. So what is management? Get what you do not have, protect what you get, and grow the protected. Don't stop at getting and protecting. And do all this by deploying people. Now, this definition has a built-in result in it. If you have done a lot of coordination and planning, nothing has really happened. You don't know what has happened. But if you get something which you do not have and then protect it and make it grow, then quite a few things have happened. You will note that this definition is applicable to not only businesses of production kind, but also for services, also for trade. Then he goes to the next important set of concepts, that happiness for all, sukha, mula, dharma, all our words which we know about, happiness is rooted in ethics. You will note that I am translating dharma here as ethics. Actually, dharma is niti of all kinds, that is ethics, morals, and laws. But in this particular context, because morals change, laws change, depending upon nation and the culture, I have said, let us look at dharma here as ethics. And you will immediately know that ethics can be followed only if you have resources. You can't expect a beggar on the street not to steal or not to do something unethical if he has to fill up his belly the next day. So that is why resources are a must for people to follow dharma, ethics. Now, how do you get resources? They come through enterprise. Rajya is the word he has used, but we are using the word enterprise or business for that. And Rajya Moolam Indriya Jayaha. The first three refer to what happens in the society as a whole, while the last one, root of enterprise, is self-control. You suddenly come to the individual who runs the show, the manager, the CEO. Now that is why in the previous slide I had said that if you do not have this, that one particular quality, there will be disaster. If you do not have self-control, then what you will do normally is you will look at your selfish interest rather than the organization interest, and that will stop things happening in the right way. So notice, this is what he has been talking about management, and I have been writing about management for years now. So I thought this time when I'm giving commentary on our Chanakya, let me talk about something which is for everybody. And for everybody means that out of the 571 sutras that he has written in the Chanakya Sutras, 216 were used because they were for management, and the remaining, quite a few as you will note, I have selected some in 5 different areas just to bring out some important concepts which are useful to us. Let us look at the general impression about common man, let us say in India, is that we in Sanskrit all talk about only Adhyatma and something like that, and we do not think in terms of worldly good. Not so. Chanakya is very much for wealth generation, because unless wealth is generated and distributed, people cannot behave ethically. And wealth generation is to be revered. That's why I was very happy the other day when our Prime Minister also said that let us respect those who generate wealth. And that starts from the farmer, because farmer is the one who really generates wealth. And then come all the others, including the traders, because they distribute it everywhere and make it available to everybody. So we must give due respect to the producer, to the distributor, and to the service people, because a school or a hospital is a service. Now that also is necessary for the society. So for everything, wealth is needed. Therefore, wealth is an important thing, and dhana is one part of the wealth. So dhanam is my first chapter out of the 5 or 6 that I am talking about today. The very first statement is very interesting. All kinds of wealth must be achieved, acquired by all kinds of means. That means go all out for money. It's a very interesting statement. Very few people have made such a statement in our culture, but it is true. The Hindu culture does not believe in austerity only. That is in the Vanaprastha ashram. In Grihastha ashram, you have to do all this. As soon as he said that all should be going after money, he immediately puts up the next one, Nyayagato Arthaha. That resources obtained by just means are the true resources. If you use unjust means, tad viparito, then it is only an illusion because it doesn't last long. There will be rebellion, there will be problems. If you start using wrong methods in doing business or trade, you will be destroyed soon enough. Therefore, be fair and just, but go after money. Then comes another interesting point. Avamanena agatam aishwaryam avamanyate sadhu. The good people do not like to be sort of losing their self-respect in the process of earning money. This has 2 implications. The CEOs, the management, the business owners should see to it that you do not demean people, though you might be paying them well, because that will not be liked by people. So therefore, Anything that you get by demeaning yourself is not worth earning. Then comes something else. When we are going after money, are we not really mortals? But no, he says, Amaravat Artha Jatam Arjayet. Keep on making money as if you are immortal. The logic is again very simple. Up to the extent that you can keep on making money, it's good for you, good for your own family, for your children, etc., etc. And the last one is the best one here, the sixth one. Going after money is not a vice. Perhaps you have heard Ratan Tata the other day saying that by all means go after more profit, but do it ethically. That's exactly what has been said 2350 years ago. The other side of dhana comes here. Palanam api paradravyam na hartavyam. Not even a morsel of somebody else's means or money or wealth you should take away. Not even a morsel. That is important. If you remember, those who are familiar, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj dismissed one of the 8 of his, let us say, Mantri Mandal, because he usurped the land of a widow neighboring his land. When Shivaji came to know about this, he simply dismissed him. That is the whole idea. Palanamapi paradravyam na hartavyam. And if you do that, what happens? If you take somebody else's wealth away, well, the result is you will use your own. And this is very true. That's why I gave the example of Shivaji taking away everything from that minister of his. Okay. Either it happens because of the king acting or the state acting, or sometimes it happens because of the people acting. Okay. What are the advantages of being wealthy enough? Arthavan is not saying very, very wealthy, but one with enough resources is generally respected amongst people. If you do not have resources and you start becoming really poor, then even your intelligence has no meaning. Therefore, adhanasya buddhina vidyate. So these are the 2 bad points about being less with money. Therefore, be after it. The second one is, the fifth one is interesting. The one who doesn't have enough money, even his wife will not respect him. And that is true in a way, because at that time, the only person who earned in the family was the husband, and the husband would not be respected by the wife. She may not show it in direct ways, but indirectly one will notice it happening if she is a little more soft about it. And the last one in this dhanam, which I have put deliberately, is being poor is in fact living a life as if you are dead. So, because there are subhashitas which say that it is better to be dead because that happens to you only once, rather than be poor because then you are hurt every now and then. So therefore, one must go after wealth. Okay, let us go to the next part, karyam, work. The first one is very simple, vritti moolam artha labha. That is, unless you do something by way of occupation, you won't get resources. You won't be able to obtain resources. This looks so obvious. Why does one say that? Everybody knows that unless you work, nobody will pay you for it. Unless you work, you will not get any business out of it. Then this has been said for 2 reasons. One is, remember that all the time, that you have to do something. Don't expect wealth or resources without doing anything. And don't go, for example, after buying a large number of tickets for lottery, saying that you will get money that way. Why do I have to work? No, that wouldn't work. That is the general idea. The second statement is interesting. Those who are energetic don't have to worry about getting a good occupation and all that. They will find their ways out. So this is important. You have to be energetic about everything so that you don't have to worry about what is your occupation like, and you can choose different occupations. That one suits you better and then succeed in the one which you have taken. If you don't succeed, change the occupation. Next comes something else. That work, that is where the work starts now, is based on resources. And even ethics and satisfaction of desires is also based on resources. Now, all this is said because then with less effort, you will get the work done faster and better. But that doesn't happen just because resources are available. You have to do accordingly the right kind of efforts. So, karya nurupa prayatna. You must make the efforts as needed by that kind of work all the time. And aprayatnat karya vipatti bhavati. Now here, aprayatna doesn't mean no effort at all. It means less effort, wrong kind of effort, or less effort. All three together can cause difficulties in work. Therefore, be very particular that you are doing everything as right as you can and as well as you can. Let us go to karyam, the other part. See, quite often we do a lot of good work and the results just don't come. What has gone wrong? What has gone wrong is nothing but the fact that the end result of your work is not under your control. See, we think we have been working all our life and we know what is work like and what work means, but that's not really true. Work in the Sankhya philosophy has been very interestingly described. It has 5 basic elements in the work. These are the doer, the means of doing work, the efforts of doing work, and the basis on which you are thinking of doing this work. That is the first. Then these 3 come, and the last one is chance. Now, unless these 5 come together, no work gets accomplished. Now, this is not something which we are familiar with. So let me repeat. I, as a doer, think that something is feasible because there is a basis for my thinking. I cannot take a glass of water, a glass made out of, a tumbler made out of glass and convert it into a tumbler made out of gold. It's not possible. So I shouldn't even try such things. Only those, there is a basis for doing work I take and then put in the right kind of effort. But last minute something can go wrong and the result may not come. So this is always possible. That's why nobody can guarantee the result. Even in businesses, all managers will be able to tell you that you do the best you can, and depending upon how the market reacts, we don't know how exactly it will, in spite of all surveys and all that, we will have to change our strategy. Those things which work better, we increase in volume. Those who do not, we drop them. So that is where the chance comes in. Result is out of control of the doer. But the chance, daiva, will always follow purushakaram. A large amount of effort is needed before you can expect the luck to be favorable. Or right kind of effort with right basis and all that. Now, if you are enthusiastic about it, you will do it. If you become non-enthusiastic, then if you lose enthusiasm, even the daivam patati, even the chance fades, the luck fades if you become, if your enthusiasm lacks. Now, many of people whom you delegate work will keep on saying that, sir, this is not happening, that is not happening, this is not available, these are my difficulties, how about, etc. A very strong statement has been made. Difficulties arise in the work and therefore we ascribe faults to them. This is a childish behavior. Only the childish will keep on complaining about difficulties in the work and not therefore do the work rightly. Therefore, just think of whatever you have in your hands and do the best you can. And if you don't have something, get it. But don't keep on complaining about it. Now, the other one, Karya Bahutve Bahufalam Ayatikam Kuryat. When tasks are too many, priority give to the most fruitful. Looks very sensible, isn't it? But that's not what happens. You have an in tray as an officer, senior officer, or a manager, and you have an in tray and an out tray. The number of things that come into the in tray actually have an ABC category. A is important, B is less important, and C is even less important. But many a C and B items look very urgent. So what the manager keeps on doing is to finish off the urgent items first. In the process, the A items remain. That is where this becomes very important. When the tasks are too many, give priority to the most useful. The most which will give you the maximum result in terms of whatever you are asking for. Then what do you do with the C items and the B items? Delegate them. I mean, I know a manager who was, when he first took charge of the textile mill, every day he signed about 200 different forms. The next month onwards, he delegated it to the next 3 levels. And he started signing only 4 forms in a day. This is what one means by taking away the C items and doing the right kind. Once I was walking along the Atira road, and a friend of my elder son happened to meet me across the road. He said, Garde uncle, I have been very much benefited by your Chanakya on management book. I said, what? I mean, I didn't even know that he has purchased the book and read it. He said, there are quite a few items there, sutras, which are very good, but one which I found was very useful to me. I said, what was that? He said, Karyarchina dakshanyam na karaniyam. Those who want to accomplish work should not show softness. He said, I was treating all my workers together in rather soft manner, not pulling them up for not doing the right kind of job and saying that how can I hurt them and all that. Then I realized that this is not the right way. Without hurting them, hurting their ego, one can pull them up and expect better results. And that I have started doing and I have benefited a lot. So, karyarchina dakshanyam na kartavyam. The one who wants to succeed should not show softness or kindness at the wrong place. Okay? There is one more thing which I can talk about. 4 senior officers in Atira were doing nothing but drawing salaries because the type of work we were doing had changed. We gave them in feedback every year for 2 consecutive years. Please do something which will bring money to Atira. But they were neither enthusiastic nor willing to work in the different direction. So we decided that we should not be soft with them. One Friday afternoon, I called 4 of them and told them, from Monday you are not coming. They were simply dismissed. Now, this caused tremendous problem in Atira because Atira is a research institute. Such a thing has never been done. So the next day morning, the unions wanted to call a meeting for the entire Atira, which I did. And all the divisional heads explained what had happened. We said, these are good people. We have given them 2 years to change. They did not. So we have removed them. Karyarchina dakshinyam na karaniyam. Okay? Then comes the last item. If something has gone wrong, it is better that you yourself check it. Don't delegate it. You have delegated. He has delegated. Something has happened. Something was expected to happen. It has not happened. Something has gone wrong. Either the full result has not come or the result has not come at all. Well, don't delegate. Go yourself and then see it. Now, this has some very interesting, let us say, implications. Quite often the management feels, oh, that fellow hasn't done the right job. Now, if you go yourself and see that you can't do anything better, then you realize that he has done a good job, but the situation was difficult. So that is one aspect of it. The other is you have a wider perspective from different angles which the other person did not have. So you see something which is different from the other and get it done. So this is also important. But this is where using the sutras to become a better manager becomes good. And this you can do even as a personal situation, not only in management situation. Now we come to dharma. And dharma, as I said, is translated as ethics, and you will now see the reason why it has been so done. Daya dharmasya janma bhumi. Empathy is the motherland of ethics. What is ethics? If I were to get the treatment you are giving me and I become unhappy, that is a bad treatment. But if I were to give the same treatment to you that you give it to me, and both of us are happy, then it is ethical. Why does this happen? Because we have empathy for each other, not sympathy here, empathy, similar feelings. So the simple statement in Bible, do unto others what you expect them to do unto you, is ethics basically. It's because of empathy. The other side of dharma, ethics, is dhanam, donation. Give, not take. Give everything and anything. Now, very interestingly, you will find giving has been very neatly defined in our scriptures as well as everywhere else. When we say give, it doesn't mean give for taking back something else. It is give without expectation of returns. That is really dhanam. The rest is bargain. The rest is, exchange. Not bargain necessarily, but exchange. So dhanam is dharma. Here the meaning of dharma is also ethics as well as a duty of you doing. So truth and alms giving both together are rooted in dharma. Truth and alms giving are rooted in ethics is also another statement. So if you are ethical, you cannot start lying because other people lying to you, you will not like. Somebody hiding something from you, as long as it doesn't hurt you, it's okay. It's not your business. But if something is happening and you are not told, it's bad. So that kind of a thing should not happen if you have the right empathy and you are following the right ethical practices. That is why dharma mule satyadani. Now comes the next part about satisfying desires. Now, satisfying desires is a very important, let us say, part of living well. We have a large number of desires and they should be all satisfied. But then what is the technique of being happy while satisfying and keeping others happy while satisfying our own desires? Simple. That desire which does not hurt or reduce either ethics or resources is the right kind of desire satisfaction. So, while satisfying the desire, if you hurt ethics or if you hurt resources, then it is a bad satisfaction of desire of your own. In other words, if you are satisfying your desire hurts others, it is bad. If it takes away somebody else's wealth, it is bad, etc. That's why it is said in the very next time that tad viparito kama vasa. If you do something otherwise than satisfying these both, dharma and artha, then it's only an illusion of desire satisfaction because basically it will lead to disaster. You will yourself be crushed under it because of your own deeds or because of other people not liking it and doing something to you or getting your things taken away by appropriate means and things like that. So that is why desire satisfaction is good as long as it does not deplete resources, does not hurt ethical principles. Okay, we have 10-15 more minutes and we have enough work to do. One aspect of dharma is whatever comes to your lot, do not think about it, just accept it. Do not worry about it. Do not ask questions, why this to me, why not to why I have been selected for this difficulty, etc. No. The logic behind this is typically Hindu philosophy. All our karmas have consequences. Everything we do has a consequence. And consequence is not only for this birth, but also from the previous birth. So whatever you happen to get today is a result of your own karmas of this birth or even possibly previous births. So we do not know what it is about. We do not have to think about it. You have to simply accept it. It doesn't mean you will not work against it or get out of it. But do not worry about it. Do not ask questions. Why me? Why not the other? I was doing everything right. Why did it happen to me? See, if we are happy and something good happens, you never ask a question. Why me? But if you get something wrong or difficulty, you say, why me? Both times, don't ask, simply accept. Now, when you start doing this, you are not dependent on others or other circumstances for your own happiness. You are stable irrespective of whether the outside, let us say, environment causes problems. Today, for example, we have the corona going and everybody is worried about it. What do I do by worrying about it? I can't change anything. It's not in my hands. Of course, I will take precautions. But then, don't think about it. Don't think too much about what will happen, why not happen, because it doesn't help either way. So, when you become free of this kind of a thinking, also free from what other people have said about you, they say it because of their own way of looking at things, their own sanskars, as we can say. And we need not worry about what they are doing and what they are saying to us. They say it because they feel like saying it. If it is good, let us not be too happy about it because you don't know with what motive they are saying good. If it is a simple good motive of appreciation, fine. But if you are saying bad, it could be also because of jealousy. So just be calm, quiet, don't worry. Then you become Jitendriya. You become somebody who has control on your organs and your mind. Therefore, you are not worried about all kinds of temptations. Once you are stable, even temptations would not take you away. Similarly, those who have purpose has been achieved will not fear death. Now, you will find that almost everywhere when we talk about something, uh, in Hindu philosophical system, we talk about death. Death is not a taboo. Death is to be talked about. Ajara Maravat Artham Sadhayet. As if you are immortal, there also death has come in. Everybody knows we are mortal, but earn money as if you are immortal. Similarly here, as long as you are doing your job well and not hurt anybody else, you are doing it ethically, then don't be worried about death. If it comes, if it comes. If it doesn't come, it doesn't come. And nothing is hurt. You have taken care of everything that you have to do, Krutartha. Therefore, don't worry about health. Nasti dharma samashakha. There is no friend like ethics or dharma, doing your duty. Because once you do that, you are helped in good and bad situations. That's why it is like a good friend for you. If you think of doing something which is not good, which is not ethical, which is literally immoral, it might be pleasurable, but it is immoral, and it might give you immediate advantage in terms of money, but it is not ethical. That is adharma buddhi. Let us say, your intelligence takes you to that kind of thing, then it simply suggests that you are going to destroy yourself. Unethical thinking indicates self-destruction. So keep away from it. And that is why ethics is an ornament for all individuals, no matter he, she, it, or even the young and the old. Okay. So we are through dharma. Let us go to the do's and the don'ts. Now here, normally we think we know that what is to be done and what is not to be done in terms of ethics and others. But what has been done here by Chanakya is that he has taken away from his own experience those things which are not normally seen by people. For example, those who are enthusiastic, even the adversaries become friendly, is something which we do not normally know. But it does happen in real life. I have seen it happening myself. Hmm? So be enthusiastic all the time. Secondly, one who enjoys the rest after satisfying own people enjoys for long. Now, this is important. If you are head of the family, you have to see to it that everybody in your family is properly taken care of, they have been satisfied properly, and then only you take what you want for yourself. Then the atmosphere will be good and you will live happy life for a long time. While this is being done, something else needs to be done. If somebody who is near to you is behaving badly, then that must be reformed. Don't say, what can I do? How do I help? No, that has to be done. Accept that they are doing something not bad or not good. Don't blame as an individual, but durvrutta, the bad point that he or she is doing, needs to be taken care of. And immediately next, kshantavyam iti purusham na badheta. That is, here it is of course said about Purush because at that time it was all male dominated society. But man should be pardoned, not harmed. Man or woman, whoever has done something which is durvrutta, the wrong thing, man should not be hurt. The durvrutta should be removed, but the person should be forgiven. Now, this is a very important statement. We always say you are bad rather than saying your work is bad or your behavior is bad. So one is saying here, don't call somebody bad or something like that. Just remove the bad part of the behavior. Now, sarvasya bhushanam vinaya. Vinaya means humility by our normal understanding. But Vinaya also means morality and training in morality. So, if you have ethics and humility together, then everybody is a much better person. You will find that most of the people whom you find as respectable in today's world also have both some basic humility, lot of accomplishment, at the same time good ethical behavior. I mean, you can take any number of names. We can talk with Narayan Murthy, Tata, everybody like that. Okay. But even amongst our friends circle, we know that somebody is rather good and he is the right person for this. Now come to the next. Even if somebody is not in your, let us say, area of acquaintances, etc., but he says something beneficial, then call him a bandhu, call him a brother, and help yourself with what he is doing. Don't keep people away just because they are not in your close circle. Then we come to what should be done in terms of krodha. Anger is something which most people do not realize is not worth it because you might get the work done, but the respect that you need to get from your people on whom you are angry does never come. And if you are angry too often on everything and every little thing, people realize that you are simply angry man, and then they forget about your anger. In a sense, you keep on being angry and they don't bother one way or the other. So your work is not accomplished any better than that. But if you have a very calm and quiet person who doesn't get angry, you might assertively say something, no problem. You might insist on getting something done. Of course you should, but don't be angry to the sense using the wrong words, shouting at somebody, etc. We'll come to that a little later also. So if you do that, then you will win all, and which is very true. This is worth working on. And one way of doing it is introspect work at quiet time. Whenever you have gone through the whole day and you have a little quiet time in the night, let us say, find out how many times you have lost your temper, if you have, and what have been the consequences, what will you do next time, etc., etc. So that is the general idea. All kinds of things that you have done, you can think when you have special spare time to look at and introspect. The next statement has a double meaning. Your growth and destruction are both dependent on your tongue. The tongue has basically uh, two, let us say, purposes. One is we use it for speaking, and the other is we use it for tasting and eating. Now, if you eat the wrong kind of thing because it tastes better and too much, you will get into destruction, all right. And if you do it the right way, you will go into vriddhi or improvement. But the same thing also happens about the words that you use from your tongue. Now, the way in which you talk makes a big difference, and that has to be very carefully controlled because your growth, vriddhi, as well as your descent into bad things, both depend on the way you talk. Because way you talk is the way people see you. Way you think, you can think one thing and talk something else also. But way you talk is the way you are seen by the people. Therefore, one has to be very particular about the way one talks, and it will have its own problem. The next one is the way Chanakya expresses things very well. He doesn't say, don't use harsh words. He says, harsh words are stronger than burning by fire. Why? Because they hurt equally well and equally deeply, but the burning by fire, the trouble that has been caused, will go away maybe after a few days or a month. But if you have said some harsh words, they will remain in the other person's mind for years together. So it is absolutely important not to use such things which are so harsh that it will hurt the feelings of the other in a big way, and then they become literally your adversaries or at least lose all respect for you. So therefore be very careful about it. The other two are simple. Mita bhojanam swasthyam. Health. Limited eating is health. And in case you get, because of one reason or the other, a sort of an indigestion, the best way is not to eat at all for a day or two. Have you ever tried not eating for a day? Try. Just for the heck of it, because it helps you to improve immunity. Okay. Now, what we should not do. Yes. If you become angry, you can see here, the first person who becomes troubled is yourself. And you are the only one who gets destroyed by becoming all the time angry. The second is equally important. Do not cross the boundaries of your character. You have a good character. Character building is not an easy thing. It has to be done bit by bit over a number of years. And then only people will believe that you are of a good character. Now, one mistake and your character is all lost. And that is where the question comes. Kadachit api charitra mridangaya. Not even once should you cross the boundaries. And anybody who crosses such boundaries, never trust him. And that is the next one. The fourth one is equally important. Everybody has deficiencies. Nobody is perfect. But there is no point in publicizing your deficiency. Don't say that, I am like this and I cannot do this. Maybe it is true. I tell the others, number one. Secondly, that way you don't respect yourself also. Therefore, don't do that. Never let others see what are your vulnerabilities, because if the others see it, those who do not like you for some reason, or those who are jealous of you, will make use of that vulnerability against you at the right time. Therefore, it is better not to do such things at all. Okay. This is something which people don't realize. They confide in somebody when they are in a mood and talk about something which they have done which is not right, no, which is correct. They think they have released themselves by that. But what having said it to the other person, you never know how that will be used against you. Okay. Having said this, one is also saying that do not ever demean anybody, insult or belittle anybody. Anybody. Here it is said Purush, because that is the way things were at that time in the let us say, culture, society. But do not demean or belittle any person, man, woman, child, anybody, because it hurts and it doesn't help. And then the question of your being sort of respected cannot happen. That is why it is necessary not to demean or belittle anybody in any context. Okay. The other side of it is do not be jealous of virtues. Do not envy the virtues in others, because that's not a good sign of your stability. And then if you start doing the jealousy can lead you to unethical behavior, pulling the leg of the other person because he is doing better than you, etc. Therefore, do not, deliberately do not let yourself become jealous or be envious of anybody who is better than you in something or the other. Somebody is always better than you in something or the other. There is no doubt about that. Nobody can be 100% all right. Okay. This is the last of the don't do, and we are done. So we'll have about 10, 12 minutes for question answers. Likeable but harmful should not be said. People try to tell you something nice sounding, though they know that it may not be in your interest. Don't do that. That's bad. Trushnaya mati chhadyate. Lust or very strong desire puts a cover on the intellect. So don't let yourself be afflicted by any kind of very strong desire about which you cannot do. It's once in a while, if something which you are doing regularly, you stop doing and it doesn't bother you, then it is not a habit. But if you are habituated to something, then it hurts you when you stop it. That is why the desires, Krishna, should be controlled that way, and nothing should be going outside the limits. Same thing is said about limits in general. Do not cross limits. Which limits? You know, in general, the average common man knows that in his cultural surrounding, what are the limits which an individual is not supposed to cross. Now, there is an exception to this. Those people who are trying to reform the society out of bad habits, even if the bad is so to say accepted by everybody, that let us say limit must be crossed. For example, long back, it was customary to say that girls need not be sent to schools because education is not necessary for women. Now, this was the limit put at that time. This had to be crossed. But otherwise, good things should not be crossed. Okay? Now you come to another interesting point about which we don't think about. If somebody who knows you well suddenly becomes very solicitous and suddenly becomes very, very sort of starts praising you, start giving you some gifts and this like that, then better be careful, better doubt the motive behind this sudden change or this gradual change in the other person's behavior, whom otherwise you knew to be good. Because these things do not happen by chance. They are done with a purpose, and if they are not done with a purpose, it's fine. There is no bad purpose, equally fine. But better doubt about it rather than take it for granted that he is a nice person. Okay. This atisangaha dosham utpadayati, we have always been saying that. Ati parichaya avadnya is something which we all know. Too much of association can cause faults. And this is where excessive closeness with anybody, and I'm talking about outside the family or inside the family also, is not good, because then you get too attached and even small things can start hurting and small things can give you troubles. Okay. And the last one is something which I hope none of us do, that those who are nearing uh, their demise never hear good advice. They just they take the advice from here and put it out from there. Hmm? So let us not do that for this advice from uh, the first management guru of the world, Chanakya. Thank you. Now we'll go for questions and answers, if there are any.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. We have many questions in the chat box. I'll just have the one. So first question is, if we go all out for money, what about peace of mind? And if we think money is everything, don't we miss the holistic meaning of life?
Okay, peace of mind is basically a question of not being perturbed by what is happening around you. Therefore, the first step is to accept whatever is happening. For example, if somebody comes into this room just now and starts shouting at me for some reason or the other, I really don't know why. But the fact is that he's shouting. So I accept the fact and do not get perturbed because I haven't done anything wrong. He is coming and shouting, let him. It's his, something is bothering him. Maybe. Okay. So personal behavior of others, as well as circumstances outside which are not in your control, simply accept them. And then if you do accept them, then you will not get disturbed mentally and you will maintain your balance. Now, acceptance doesn't mean that you should let it happen continually or all that. First accept and then take the step with a stable mind for changing the situation or for helping the other person see the right things. So if somebody is coming and shouting at you, say, hold on, hold on. What do you think I have done? Why you are angry? Then he says something which you can be able to say, no, this is what you feel you have, I have done, I have not done this, I have done the other thing. That kind of a thing can happen. So this is something which is to be followed all the time. Then you will have reasonably good chance of being happy. Not easy to do every time. Therefore, whenever you go wrong during the day, during the night time you can think about it and maybe you can get a better handle on yourself. Yes.
Yeah, sir. There's another interesting question. How to how to overcome strong behavior of opponents?
How to?
How to overcome the strong behavior of the opponent?
Ah, you cannot really overcome the strong behavior of the opponent. It depends on what you are talking about. If you are in a tennis match, that's a different story. But if you are at a workplace or if you are in the family and somebody is behaving strongly, then you have to really wonder why there is that kind of a strong behavior. Sometimes it is because of the inferiority complex of the person who wants to dominate to show that he is not inferior. So a little more sympathy towards his general behavior without blaming him as a person, but looking at why not do it this way to get the same result might help. I mean, these are things which you have to try. I cannot say I have succeeded in doing these things. I mean, I will tell you as a manager, uh, the two unions that were there, one was reasonable, the other was unreasonable. I just could not make them see the right things, all that. They have always shouting slogans against me and I never succeed. So I don't think I have right to tell anybody to do how to do right every time against strong opponents. Try different things and be worried, be not worried about failures. That's all.
Thank you very much, sir. One last question for the evening. Don't we have ethics changing as per the situation, person, time, and place? How to stabilize, like how to have a uniform kind of ethics for each situation, each person, and kind of thing?
That's a good point. That's, I think, a very important point. Uh, that is where we confuse between ethics and morals. Ethics are universally valid, do not change from person to person. do not change from culture to culture, do not change from time to time over periods of time. That is because ethics can be simply defined as if an action taken by a person A, which affects the person B, makes A, who is taking the action, happy, just interchange A and B. And if the person A again is still happy, then the action is ethical. Sounds very complicated, right? Let me simplify. If I steal 1,000 rupees from you, I'll feel happy. But if you steal 1,000 rupees from me, I'll be unhappy. The same action from you to me, I am unhappy. Stealing is not ethical, right? So ethically is just an interchange between the doer and the action. But morals are different. Let us look at the way in which Dharmaraja lost in a game of dice. You saw dice somewhere when we were talking about Daiva. Now, at that time, the moral system was such that the head of the family was the owner of everything in the family and everybody. So, the four brothers belonged to Yudhishthira and he could put them at stake and lose one by one. After that, he put even his wife at stake and lost her. Now, these are moralities of that time, but ethically everything was wrong. Because if you interchange Yudhishthira with Bhim, everything goes wrong. Bhim will put Yudhishthira on stake? No. That is where ethics is always the same all over the world, irrespective of everything. So please, if you want to look at more about it, see the AMA publication, Ethics for Everyone, also for business. Author is Ashok Raghunath Garde. So I can recommend it to you. It's a good book.
Thank you, sir. One last question. How to respond if someone tries to discourage or dominate you again and again?
Say it again.
How to respond if someone tries to discourage or dominate you again and again?
Oh, nobody can dominate you. You let people dominate you. Nobody can discourage you. You let people discourage you. See, if somebody is trying to dominate you, simply ignore it. Don't go by that. Now, what happens is, take the question of a boy or a girl who is of the order of 17, 18-year-old, and the father is dominant because he is the only earner in the family. Now, if he wants to get something done, and if he wants to tell the boy or the girl to do something, whether they like it or not, they have to suffer the dominance because they are not independent as yet. So what happens is, they do it under duress, sometimes showing it, sometimes not showing it. But when the time comes, when they become independent and when the father becomes an old person, they put him in the Muddrashram rather than take care of him. So it's a question of your what you do. But basically, if you are both adults and both are independent, nobody can dominate you, nobody can discourage you. Simply ignore. And there are a number of things like that. For example, if you have heard B.K. Shivani and Suresh Oberoi's dialogues, Suresh Oberoi keeps on telling that he wanted to be an actor and everybody else discouraged him. The family didn't want it. The others said, you are not the kind who will make a hero, all that. He simply said he ignored the discouragement and went ahead. So if you look at it the other way around, if you have a focus and if you want to do something, nobody can stop you from doing it if you are an independent adult. Leave it at that. Okay? Was that the last question?
Questions are over.
Sir, thank you very much for an interesting and useful session. Very nicely taken all the answers by the participants. Thank you very much again. Once again.
Thank you, Nair sir,
for all the participants. Please do attend our next seminar also. Please do attend. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.